All right, welcome to Cwic Show. My name is Greg Mattson. I am your host. In this episode, we are covering the NEA's keynote address given by their president, Becky Pringle. The NEA is the National Education Association. It is the largest labor union in the United States, therefore, obviously, the largest teachers union in the United States. I think it's very important for us to understand who they are and what they really represent. This is not something, you've got this rallying call here you're going to see, which is, wow, when you listen to Becky Pringle here, she sounds like a politician much more than she does someone who is trying to lead a better education for students. And you're going to pick up on a few words here that are really important to understand and what they're trying to do. Remember, this is the same organization that in 2021, last year, passed at a minimum there were at least two different resolutions that they were going to be teaching critical race theory and that they were going to be pushing this through their union and with the teachers and those that are associated with the National Education Association. So let's go right into this. You're going to see right away the introduction that she's giving, who she talks about, and this is going to lay the foundation for you for who this organization really is.
You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time.
All right. So I want to talk about this here real quick. She's going to go over this. She actually says this 3 or 4 times, and I don't know if you could ever make it through this. I do this because I feel like I have to. It is really something when you listen to her. It is a rally, right? This is a political rally. This is not about the education of the students. But she is going to talk several times about how you have to engage your life. Your whole life must be dedicated to justice and resistance over and over again. You can see what this is. See, this is a conversion process. This is dedicate your life. This is not about, fix this little thing here, fix that little thing there. She is part of the movers and shakers of critical social justice. And they demand your whole heart, might, mind, and strength. And she says this several times. It is a religion, and she is one of the key clergy members here of the religion. Now look at who she's going to reference here.
For half a century, the writer and educator, Professor Angela Davis has called on this nation to bring its practices into full alignment with its promises, to create a society where equity and justice are the rule, not the exception.
All right, so Angela Davis ran for the vice president of the United States for the Communist USA Party twice. That's who she is. She's a radical from the 60s and the 70s. She is a Marxist. And this is who she opens up her speech with. And it's not a surprise. This is who Ibram Kendi, the anti-racist, right, holds up as the best example of an anti-racist. It's Angela Davis, the Marxist. And of course, she brings up here already equity and justice. These are Marxian tenets. They do not mean equality for all. This is not like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. This is something very, very different. And then look what she wants you to do.
We must share that view Professor Davis holds dear. Whether it is a mind, a heart, a school, a community, or our world, transformation is always possible. Change is always possible, NEA, because of you.
Okay, So again, transformation and change into what? I mean, she's talking about Angela Davis, a Marxist. Look, I don't know if Becky Pringle is a Marxist, but that's who she's holding up. All right, that's what it is. I mean, by their fruits you shall know them. And so she lays out her talk here by talking first about Angela Davis. She's going to have several other quotes here. I'm not going to go through all these because they're tough to get through. But thank you, delegates. This whole thing is set up like a political rally with people from different states and their state banner being, vertical, and it looks like a political rally. But thank you, delegates, for pursuing justice. One of her quotes: "Resistance is the secret of joy." Get that, right? Kind of like, the tree of life in Lehi's dream, right? The joy there, I guess that's resistance. That is what is going to bring you joy. She talks about the attacks on the profession. They specifically, in those resolutions last year that they passed about critical race theory and making sure that critical race theory was taught in all of their schools, they specifically talked about the attacks on the profession. They're talking about the parents who are at the board meetings that are fighting to get critical race theory out of their schools. Those are the attacks that they're talking about. She goes on to talk about a way to resist even as you hold on to joy. Again, she's coupling these together. This is really bizarre. This is where you get into a cultish type of a verbiage and understanding of what they're trying to get out there, this whole thing. She doesn't talk about how the ability to improve math scores or better English or get better science into the schools. There's nothing about that here. It's nothing about the education of the students. Zero. And then here she goes again about justice and action.
Because you see, NEA, when it comes to our students, we must do justice. Justice must be an action.
Right. Again, because you see, NEA, when it comes to our students, we must do justice. What they're really saying is indoctrinate into justice. Justice must be an action. Again, this is the praxis that goes along with critical race theory and critical social justice. They are activating you. It's always about activism. It is about voting. It is about rallies. It is about organization and making policy changes that are going to move schools further and further into these Marxian tenets. And again, this is what is happening to your schools, K-12. This is the biggest influence out there in the United States on the K-12 space. And do you see them holding back at all? She's introducing her speech for the year with Angela Davis. Last year they passed the two resolutions on critical race theory. There's no more holding back. You don't see that as much anymore. That Mott and Bailey is becoming much, much more about Bailey, right? About getting out there and being open, because they can. They have progressed so far to the point in the culture today with language, equity, justice, etc., that they're emboldened to go even further and actually say, okay, yeah, we'll hold up a Marxist as the person that we want to follow and be like. And then here you're going to get more about how they're part of a movement. This is not about the kids. They're part of a movement. Look at what she says about the country here.
You are answering my call to lead a movement that unites not just our members, but this entire nation.
Okay, so you can see where she's going with this, right? This is part of a movement. It's a political movement for the entire country. She goes on to say that the movement is racially and socially just and an equitable system, right? So again, you get just, justice, and equitable. Very important for them. And then she gets very political here, and she goes into the Supreme Court decisions that have come down here recently, and of course fighting on one side of those, and then bringing up resistance again as she talks about those Supreme Court decisions, as if they have, maybe the gun laws you can bring up a little bit as far as policy and fighting for those. She talks about that a little bit, but most everything that she's bringing up here are social issues that have nothing to do directly with the schools. They have to do with critical social justice. She talks about voting against certain, that they will rally to vote against certain politicians if they do not agree with what they say. She goes on to talk about defending equity and justice. She adds freedom in there, of course. You will demand equitable schools, voting rights, and organizing anyone that's willing to help. And then she's going to go over another phrase that she says a lot, which is radical transformation or radically transform. Radical is another word that is used all the time, blatantly, without any apology, because radical goes along with revolution. And that's what these people are really looking for. It is absolute revolution. She says radical transformation or radically transforming. She's talking about a nonviolent revolution in the culture. That is their goal. That is what they are after in the K-12 space with your kids.
That's why I know we will act as if it were possible to radically transform our world every day, all day, in every school, in every community, in every state across this nation.
All right, so again, this may be the most powerful person in all of education, in all of the K-12 space in the country. Right? This is the president of the National Education Association, and she is looking for radical transformation, and she wants everybody working on this all day, every day. We are so much further gone than people realize in the K-12 space. You don't think that because you don't see it manifesting completely yet with your kids or your grandkids at school. Every once in a while, something comes up and you're like, oh, that's kind of strange. But the groundwork is laid for this. And we are going to start seeing radical transformation in the next few years. Starting next year, again, we saw it last year. We're going to see even more this coming year, more the following year. All of these ethnic studies programs that have been approved and put into all these states, that's what this is. The ethnic studies programs they're really basically a way to insert radicalization. All of the people that they refer to are radicals, mostly from the 60s and the 70s. They're mostly Marxists. And it's all part of the curriculum now in these ethnic studies. And Utah just passed it. Utah just passed this. Most of the Republicans agreed to do this in Utah, to pass ethnic studies into the K-12 space. Wait till you see the curriculum and the verbiage that is going to come from this. They believe they can allow it in so that they can control it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. When you let in a virus like this, it's going to take over, right? This is Ebola. This isn't a cold. This is Ebola. And it's Utah and all the other states that are putting this in. We're going to see, I really think this is going to happen. We're going to see a radical, talk about radical, we're going to see a radical exodus out of the K-12 public schools. You're going to see huge growth going into the charter schools. Now, they're already putting their tentacles into the charter schools. And they're going to get into homeschooling more too eventually, because you're going to see these students just like bailing. These families that are concerned about these types of this kind of indoctrination in the schools, they're going to charter schools that are going to be able to pull back a little bit from those things, be a little bit more careful about the curriculum and the people that they hire, and you're going to see a lot of people moving to homeschooling. And it's going to happen, I believe, at a pretty fast rate, to the point that it's going to get alarming for the public school system, and they're going to wonder what to do. And then they're going to start thinking about, how do we pass laws to make sure that people come back to public school? Or how do we get our curriculum into these areas? But someone like the NEA, where they have control of the public school teachers and districts, they're not going to want either of those options. They're not going to want the charter schools because they don't participate in the labor unions. They're not going to want the homeschooling, obviously. They're not a part of their control. So it's going to get very interesting over the next several years. Now, she's going to follow up with just a couple of comments here I want to get to. One short comment, and then she's going to bring it on home here at the end.
The sun is still shining, and it will rise again tomorrow. You will not be defeated. You will never give up. You will never give in. Every day, all day, you will be centered in the work that we have been called to do together. Every day, all day, we will embrace our resistance as joy. Every day, all day, we will remember who we are.
Okay, wow. This is the person who's leading the NEA. So again, you heard her say again, right, about resistance and joy. Yeah, I've seen this online. I'm trying to remember other places where I've seen this, where the resistance and fight for justice is a part of joy, right? Again, this is a cult, and they're going to start bringing these in together. So there's a little bit of a spiritual type of an ingredient involved with this, beyond just an idea of a morality centered in a certain type of equity and outcome at the back end. Here's her send home.
Delegates, lift up your heads. We are the NEA. We are the NEA. We are the NEA, and we will prevail. Onward, NEA, onward.
All right, standing ovation for her here from the delegates in the convention here that she has. But anyway, I wanted to just show you this and give you an idea. We're going to be doing a lot more on the K-12 space coming up, especially as school starts here in a month or two. It's I hate to say this, it's worse than you think it is. It is much worse than you think it is, and they have gotten their I don't want to say claws, but they've been able to really grab a hold of control of curriculum, of hiring practices, of programs. When you start getting into the SEL stuff, which we'll be doing here shortly, you add in the ethnic studies. There are so many different ways, mental health programs. There are so many different ways that they are getting into the kids in public school. I mean, think about it. This is a treasure for indoctrination, right? If you can get all of your information into the K-12 space, you've got the kids, right? You've got the kids. I wish it was a rosier picture. That rose is dipped in poison, and it's dying every day a little more. I'll talk to you next time.